Howdy folks, welcome back to Grumpy Viking Tactical Channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you, doing a bit of a review of the Diamondback DB-15. This is just another AR-15 pattern rifle. Many consider it a more budget AR-15, entry-level type AR-15, which, yeah, I would say for its price tag, they're pretty correct. I'm going to talk a bit about the rifle, what you get, and actually some issues I've had, or a issue I've had, as well as my overall experience with the rifle. So I'm going to do some shooting just to kind of show some things off here. But let's start off with, well, first off, want to take a moment, say thank you to all the Patreons. You guys help support the channel. It's an extra bit of a budget, helps with the ammunition, things of that nature, as well as the YouTube subscribers. They help out as well by watching the videos, liking, commenting, subscribing, the whole 9 yards. That all helps me out, gives me more exposure. So yeah, help out a growing YouTuber. But all right, let's dive on into it here with the Diamondback DB-15. You know what, let's just go tip the butt. I'm not going to cover all the parts. I'm not going to cover the attachments I put on the rifle. I'm just going to cover how the rifle came. It came bare bones. So what you have is you have an A2 flash hider, and then you have a 1 8 twist chromoly barrel. It's a 16-inch barrel with a mid-length gas block, but it has to be said that even though it's a mid-length gas block, it is a Block 2 version of the gas block. So for those people who aren't aware, a few years ago, the M4s actually got upgraded to having a Block 2 gas block. And essentially, and of course there were some other upgrades as well with the Block 2 pattern M4s, but essentially what it is it's a more aggressive gas block. So the rifle actually is purposely over-gassed so it will work better in adverse conditions. It's an over-gassed gas block compared to what they originally were putting on the M4s, the M16A1s, the M16A2s, so on. The rail here, this is an aluminum rail. As you can see, it's skeletonized and it is M-LOK style. Diamondback makes a few different types of AR-15s with different types of rails. It's going to be based on what model you get. It does have some Picatinny. I'll try to show this here. It has the rail itself has some Picatinny on the back, and then it has some pick rail on the front for optics, as well as the upper receiver has pick rail. The upper and lower receiver are forged and machined aluminum. Nothing special there, it's just Milspec. The trigger is also a Milspec style trigger. Once again, no thrills. And that's going to be kind of the theme with this rifle. It is a no thrills rifle. There's nothing super special about it. The grip here, this is actually from an M16A2. These are A2 style grips, Milspec style grips. Now, I took and sanded the nub off. That's why it doesn't have one, but it is an A2 style. And, you know, once again, no thrills. It's just more Milspec. The firing pin assembly is more Milspec. Now, probably the one cool feature I have to say is this right here. I'll move up to the camera so you can get a better view of it. And that is the fact that this is stamped. Diamondback does this on all their upper receivers. on the ejection flap, the dust cover, they stamp what caliber the upper is chambered for. So that's nice that if you have multiple uppers, you can just kind of pick it up, look at it and go, okay, yeah, that's the 5.56, or that's the 300 blackout, or whatever. And then you can slap it on a lower and walk out the door to the range. The charge handle is, I'm not going to pull back on the charge handle because I'm actually loaded, but it's just the same thing you'd find on an M16A2 or an M4A1. It's just a Milspec aluminum charging handle. The safety, non-ambidextrous. Once again, just a Milspec safety switch. Same way with the ejection button, the mag release button, just Milspec. Make sure that jammed in there. Buffer tube is also a Milspec. It is a 6 position, so you have multiple different positions to work with. Now, the stock, it came with one of the cheap generic Milspec military style stocks. I replaced it with a Magpul because, yeah, those stocks suck. And then the buffer is also a Milspec buffer, although some things have come up recently that kind of make me question that. Tell you what, let's stop talking. Let's start doing some action. So as you can see, works pretty good. And that's saying about it. I have probably somewhere between 800 and 1,000 rounds through this. And I've had no problems with this rifle feeding. It just runs all the time. I pretty much just keep the boat oiled. Whenever I shoot a lot of ammo, I'll take time to actually do a field strip and actually clean the parts. Now with that being said, give me one moment. I have something to show you because there's a bit of an issue I had. And the best thing to do is to actually show you the issue. So, yep, just give me one moment. Alright, so here's the issue I had with this AR-15, and I'll move in to give a closer look. This is the original buffer, and this is only with 1,000 rounds. As you can see, the buffer itself has held up actually pretty good. And yeah, it's really oily right now, but that soft plastic part is not supposed to be like that. I have never seen a buffer actually do that, even in all my years of being in the service. Now, I've heard of these buffer pieces breaking, and usually the armorer would just replace them when that would happen. And the reason the armorer would do it is because we'd have to report it to him, and then he'd come to us with a new buffer and either make us do it or he'd do it himself. So I'm really skeptical on how Milspec this buffer is. I want everyone watching to understand that the only ammo I've put through this is M855, which is a 62 grain bullet. It is a NATO Milspec round, meaning it's green tips, which is one of the more common. It is one of the more common 5.56 rounds. I did shoot some M855A1, which are a little bit spicier. But I mean, essentially, this buffer's mostly seeing M855. What I suspect, and this is just my understanding looking at the documentation, with the Block 2s, there was a bit of an issue reported with the buffer lifespan on the Block 2 versions of the M4. And a proposal was put in for a Block 3, which would actually replace the standard old school Milspec carbine buffer and buffer spraying with a Geisley H1. It's a bit of a more heavy duty buffer, and it can take a bit more pressure. So maybe that's the issue. The other thing I saw online when I was looking at just replacing the buffer is to go to Diamondback and buy one of these. These are $10. That is a really, really cheap buffer, which kind of makes me wonder where they are getting them from, or where, you know, how are they making them. Either ways, what I ended up doing is I ended up buying a Tri-B buffer and putting that in the rifle, which I'm trying that now. So yeah, that buffer's junk, and it's got a new Tri-B buffer in it. That's really the only issue I've actually had with this rifle. So, you know, you can be the judge on if this rifle was worth the $600 price tag. These are actually MSRP. I think they're like $720, $730, something like that. You can find these in gun stores for like 600 bucks. Now, honestly, they're bare bones, so you're going to have to take time and slap on all your Gucci Man toys, which is pretty typical for ARs nowadays. I honestly can't, except for the buffer issue, I honestly can't say I'm disappointed. And with that being said, like I said, looking at the literature, this one really might not be on them. They just might not really know. Or the fact they just decide to cheap out instead of actually using a good, really good quality buffer. I'm not exactly sure. Either ways, even if you would decide to buy one of these and get a Geisley H1 and drop it in there, you're still looking at a rifle under $700, because the Geisley buffers, I've seen them going for like 80 bucks. So that's still under $700 for these. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good, solid deal, especially when it comes to certain areas. Because like I've looked at Radical Arms and some other companies, and yeah, I wasn't impressed. And honestly, I would say this is actually pretty on par with like a Smith & Wesson MP-15, at least, if not even, might even be closer to Palmetto State Armory. But anyway, folks, I'll let you be the judge on that. Thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video, and have yourself a wonderful day.